Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You know what's great about your investment account with the big guys? It's actually a time machine. Log in and zoom. Welcome back to 1999. It's time for an upgrade. At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind at Public.com. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
We've all done it. You see a headline but don't have time to read the whole story. Or there's so much news, you're not sure what is worth your time. I'm Colby Ickowitz, co-host of Post Reports, the weekday afternoon podcast from The Washington Post. Post Reports brings you what's relevant and revealing. Breaking stories, politics, wellness, culture. Each episode goes beyond a headline for the context you need. Find Post Reports now, wherever you're listening.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Sam's a sex doc. He's a Sam's a sex doc. He's a Sam's a sex doctor. He's a Sam on later with Mo. Sam's a sex doctor. He's a
Yeah, the sex doctor Sam Z is in right now. So listen up to KFI's Later with Mo Kelly. La 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 la, later with Mo. Okay, later with Mo. La la la, later with Mo.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere. Just say everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're live everywhere. And also the iHeartRadio app. Sam, the sex doctor, is in and he will see us now. Sam, you and I have kind of bounced around this subject in the sense of sex and shame. There's usually a moral weight or anchor or albatross, which is put around many of our necks as far as sex being free in our expression and not disappointing our parents, as it were, or, you know, running afoul of our religion and moral, all that kind of stuff. Where do you want to start with this?
Well, I'm glad you brought religion up as, kind of a gateway into the shame discussion, because I was talking to a friend of mine. We both saw a movie separately. It was The Phoenician Scheme. Just came out, the Wes Anderson movie. Fun movie, entertaining movie. I recommend it. Not necessarily the best Wes Anderson movie, but it's not bad. But he entire time couldn't stop talking about Mia Threepleton. I think that's how her name is pronounced. She played a really, really hot nun in the movie, and she wore makeup and everything. They actually made a point that nuns aren't supposed to wear makeup, but she had that indulgence, and he could not stop talking about how hot she was, how sexy that he thought that nun was in the movie the whole time. And I think he was kind of inadvertently letting me know what his kink was, the thing that he was into. And it got me thinking, what about that is so hot? What about that idea is so sexy? Now, I mean, obviously
the taboo of the nun participating, engaging in the taboo of participating, engaging in sex with a nun.
Yeah. Exactly. And also from the thing that made it also really clear in my head that came out was the idea of the amount of shame that they can throw at you from the position, and also the amount of discipline that they can throw at you, using God to guide that ruler across your knuckles, that kind of thing. And I know there's people out there right now thinking about that, getting a little hot, getting a little turned on by it, because it's, for some people, they have sexualized their shame. And everybody, all of us,
explain that. Sexualize their shame.
Yeah. Say, for example, they feel some sense of religious shame, and then they develop a kink out of that shame. So that my friend may have a kink sexually towards nuns, just based off of that sense of shame that they feel around them personally. Maybe they were shamed by a nun in the past, told that they were behaving like a bad boy and spanked or something. And that's the birthplace of that kink, I guess, for him. Now, everybody develops kinks differently, and it's something that shame a lot of time gets associated with it religiously. And for that specific, that nun position, that's a very dominant disciplinarian role.
Are you getting ready to get into like sadomasochism? And
I'm knocking on the doorstep.
Okay.
I'll get to that. We'll get to that. Now, a lot of times people will act out their sexual shame unconsciously, either if they're by themselves and if they're, masturbating, and then they're, a lot of times after they climax, they get that sense of regret or shame afterwards. And it's because a lot of times they've been told that's not okay. Don't do that. So a lot of times it's associated with parents telling us what's right and wrong, and a lot of times it gets associated with God and it kind of gets blurred together.
If you do that too much, your hair will start growing on your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me, I rewatched Kentucky Fried Movie, and there was a scene in that briefly referenced that exact joke, and it was really funny. But that's the thing. There is socially a place for some sexual shame. Now, I tried to do my best to not shame people based off of their kinks, their sexuality, anything like that. But there is some place for social shame, especially when it comes to matters of consent. If you're violating boundaries, harming others without their consent, especially minors, there is a place for social shaming of specific sexual acts. But other than stuff like that, if you're doing stuff consensually with other people, unless you want shame introduced to it, I'm not going to be someone to shame anybody in those situations.
That's you. That's me. I always say you like what you like. And if you're not breaking any laws, I'm not going to judge. And I say that sincerely because look, when I say you like what you like, I like what I like. Mark, I assume, likes what he likes.
I don't like anything.
Tuala likes what he likes. Stefan and so forth. I don't think we're dealing with any virgins here. The point I'm trying to make is we all like what we like, and we probably would not want that under a spotlight.
Now, there are a lot of people who have other ideas in their head that they want to be able to communicate, say, with their partner, and they have a lot of shame about it, so they don't communicate those desires with people. And really, when those moments happen, I question how deep of a connection those people have if they're so worried about being judged off of something that they are into sexually.
But let me just say this, just over the fullness of my dating history. Sometimes you have a connection with someone and you may not be on the same wavelength as far as depth of your sexuality, but the other parts of the relationship are so strong that's more important.
Absolutely. And I've been in those relationships where they have had great solid ground for a lot of, good energy. We treat each other well. We coexist well with each other. But the idea of sex or having conversations about sex immediately led to a lot of tension, stress, things that made it really hard to actually connect and express desires and needs and stuff like that. So a lot of times people get kink shamed. And that's what they're afraid of, is that they're going to express this idea that they're into and they want to express it to their partner, but they're terrified of what that response is going to be.
I understand if Mark hypothetically were to express to the long-suffering one that he is quietly a furry.
Yeah.
That might be a cause for friction in the relationship. He has this other side to him, hypothetically.
Like, listen,
carpet burn friction.
You ever see a show called The New Zoo Review?
Nice callback.
I have something you need to know about.
Anyhow, yes, we get that point. We got to stop right there because we got to go to a commercial break. But on the other side, where do you want to pick up exactly?
Now, we just talked about how sex gets acted out. A lot of times shames get acted out sexually unconsciously. We're going to talk about the stuff that you referred to. Conscious ways that we act out our sexual shame. BDSM, for example.
Oh, we're going there tonight.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Or big bit. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere, the iHeartRadio app.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time on a fancy water bottle with ultra titanium alloy metal. You're not sure why you need all that. I mean, it just holds water. But you're getting it anyway, because if you're hiking near an active volcano and you accidentally drop the bottle into molten lava, your water will still be icy cold. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. for water bottles. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And here we have a specimen from the early 2000s, a legacy investing platform. Please don't touch the exhibit, folks. It could crash.
Ready to step out of the financial history museum? At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. It's Later with Mo Kelly. We're live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and the iHeartRadio app. The sex doctor, is still in with us, giving us some needed advice. Sam, before the break, we were talking about sex and shame, some of the reasons why we have these hang-ups and how it may play out in our relationships. And before the break, you told us that we're going to go into a darker place now, if you will.
Yeah.
Take it away.
We've been talking about unconscious acts of sexual shame and acting them out. And a lot of times that happens unconsciously. People aren't fully aware of it. Sometimes people do it while they're dreaming. But for people that are consciously aware of the connection between sex and shame and they want to engage in acting out that sexual shame, usually we associate those acts with BDSM. Mm-hmm. Now, BDSM, I'm sure everybody knows, is bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. Some people also call the D and S in that dom and sub. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions. By the way, nuns that we were talking about in the last segment, they are associated with the discipline aspect of BDSM. Mm-hmm. They have that wielding power dynamic. Yeah. And every time, seriously, I see a nun with a ruler in her hands, and I'm immediately thinking along those lines. But misconceptions.
You're telling on yourself now.
I have no problem on myself. I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff, and I have no problem discussing it because really there's so much about it. Without the actual act of it, we're not here. That's just the basics of it. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go deeper into the subject, there's so much of it that there's so many misconceptions and misunderstandings that people have about it that they end up rejecting things that they may end up, if they allow themselves to engage in those things, may become important parts of their lives. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are within the BDSM community look at that as being a huge part of their lives, not all of their lives, but a big part of their lives. And that community expanded exponentially when the internet kicked in. Because before it was very much a niche thing and people carried quite a bit of shame about that kind of stuff. And especially because a lot of times the only time you ever saw any reference to it was whenever shame was being brought in motion pictures or in porn where it was specifically doing that.
Do I interpret this the right way when you say the internet changed all that? Is that because people then found their community and found that they were less isolated?
Less isolated, and that the things that fall under the umbrella of BDSM were not as socially shameful as people were making them out to be. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it could be something as, quote unquote vanilla as just, spanking. That's considered part of BDSM, and that's like one of the more basic vanilla aspects of it. But when you get to, the stuff that people tend to associate it, like whips,
like David Carradine,
things, autoerotic asphyxiation, things like that. Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
I can't, and I'm not even going to try. I will say something I'm not allowed to say on the radio. The dump button is there for a reason. Now, some of the misconceptions come around the idea, for example, of who's in control when it comes to domination and submission. Immediately on its face, you're looking at domination, you're thinking power, and the person who's a sub is the one who has no power. More often than not, that dynamic, it's not just a matter of, control. It's power dynamics at play between those two. Usually, a lot of times, what people don't understand about it is that the sub is usually the one that has all of the power.
Explain that as best you can.
The act doesn't happen without them saying
the safe
it's
word.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's where safe words come into play. Absolutely. But the second that they say no, that no has to be respected. Whoever the other person is on the other end of it is someone who probably has a lot of experience living with them, working with them, to communicating those sexual needs and desires with them so that they can read them and communicate verbally and non-verbally to allow for the space for that so that they can go through something that otherwise would be considered assault.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're doing something that's consensual. It's not assault. This is something that they're both consenting to. And for the sub, they are giving someone else control, but they maintain the power.
Talk to me about the psychological health benefits of having this relationship and understanding, which is fulfilling ostensibly for both parties.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the mental health aspect of it because I'm a trauma therapist on top of being a sex doctor. I do a lot of mental health work with the VA and survivors of sexual trauma. And I actually, I have a lot of ideas for dissertation topics, and this is one that I explored and got talked out of, was the impact of BDSM on people who have PTSD from combat.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. Now, there have been research into PTSD survivors of sexual trauma and BDSM, and what got explored there was the level of the loss of control that happens whenever they had that that boundary violated, and the level of control that they regain in those moments. It heals. It has a healing quality to it because maybe for the first time they're having their no respected. When someone is saying no, stop, someone is saying, yes, ma'am. And then they know how a good partner knows aftercare after those moments. The thing that I tell people all the time, couples within the BDSM community are the ones that have the best communication patterns, bar none. They have the survival physically and emotionally of both of them is completely reliant on it.
We had a very clinical discussion of topics which are uncomfortable for many.
Yeah.
Could I get you to stay around for another segment? Because we're just going to go bargain basement, real childish titillation when we come back.
Yeah.
And let me just say, it's size matters from the other end of the spectrum.
The inverse of size matters, I guess.
That's all I'll say for right now. If you're watching the YouTube show, you know what's coming up. I mean, next on the show. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640 is Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. And let me just tell you this. I'm watching the amount of viewers we have on our YouTube channel. It has grown by 25 or so. We get anywhere between 70 and 100, usually consistent viewers. It grew 2025 and just during the commercial break because they know there's a video component to the show and you can see what the next subject is going to be. So I'm going to try to be as adult about this in a genuine way as possible. We've heard the term that size matters, but it's usually in reference to a man. And sometimes men can get caught up in the idea of measuring up or not. Did you know, and I can say confidently and honestly, I did not know this, that it may not be up to the man. In other words, it depends on how deep the pool is.
True.
There's a study that says that the woman's secret garden, I'll just call it that, the secret garden. The secret garden can change its dimensions across a woman's lifetime within a month, within various hormonal changes and sexual arousal. For example, before puberty, the secret garden usually measures between 2.2 inches and 3.1 inches in length. During puberty, it increases, but because also hormones may change the lining. Now, as a woman becomes older, it will extend up to maybe 4.9 inches. So depending on that woman's sexual partners, depending on who she's experiencing, that man may be perceived one way or another way, and it has to do with the woman's changes, not the man. Didn't know that.
A lot of times, and usually men worry about their size in relation to other men. Women, if there's a woman out there who's into larger men, that's cool. That's their choice. They call them size queens, and good for them. I'm okay with that. That's their choice, and they can pursue that in their lives, no problem. And there are toys that can fulfill their needs. Now, the thing is, there's so many guys that obsess over their size, where for a lot of women, really, it's not necessarily how deep it all goes, because most of the nerves sexually are in the first 3 inches. There's reason why people, whenever they're showing you how to do certain things to pleasure women with their fingers, it's because it's not like people have gigantic hands. So it's because you have to know how to operate in there.
Okay, so let's be honest then. There is a scientific basis to motion of the ocean.
There is some people are enjoy having something larger. Other people, the idea of something larger is something that's painful for them. So they want something.
But going back to the story, it could be relative to the physiology of the woman herself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's all up to what whoever that sexual partner is into. If that partner is into a larger member, it may the size of their secret garden, if you will, would be irrelevant. It's a matter of what just makes them happy and gives them pleasure. If something that really, I think there's so much emphasis and weight put on that, not necessarily, obviously socially, but really individually.
Let me jump in there, because this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the shame, sex and shame.
Yeah.
Where it could be self-induced for a man.
Absolutely. Where they are comparing themselves sexually and as far as their actual physical size and their virility to what they see in porn. And porn is not sexual reality.
Explain that for folks who don't know.
Yeah. Porn is specifically designed to cater to sexual fantasy.
Of men.
Of men, typically of men. It's specifically focused on catering to the fantasies of men. That doesn't necessarily mean women aren't getting anything out of it. There are many women out there who are getting the exact same sexual arousal out of watching pornography. Now, whether you want pornography legal or not, that's another discussion, and I'm not going to have it. But there's so much shame based off of men judging themselves off of people who are getting paid to have fantasy sex. Fantasy sex is, first off, reality of sex is way messier than the fantasy of sex. They don't show the cleanup. But really, if we're comparing ourselves to guys that spend their entire time basically working out in the gym so that their bodies look 100% in shape, so that they can be this physical ideal of what men should be, so that they can go and have fantasy sex with the physical ideal of what a quote unquote woman or whatever they are having sex with or whomever they are having sex with in that scene is. They are all catering to fantasy. And if we are going to base ourselves and our statures off of the fantasy versions of what we want, we are going to always fall short.
But don't we do that naturally because sex begins in the mind? It has to do with our preconceived notions about this, that, and the other. Now, those notions can be shaped by our actual experiences, or it could be shaped by the fantasy of media. Because remember, we grew up at different times. Mark and I are around the same age. For us growing up, there was the Sears catalog. I'm being actually serious.
I'm not kidding. No, seriously, people would look in the bra section, and that would, for me, my generation was scrambled Playboy. On
yes.
Yes.
You work with what you got.
Yes. Exactly.
After 10 p.m.
Yeah. So that's the thing is that, we all work with whatever we have. And a lot of people will develop the sense of shame where you're saying exactly right. Sex and sexuality really starts in the brain. And if you a a lot of people look at their size as their ability to give pleasure sexually to someone else. And if you're going to look at it from your brain being the place where all sex and sexuality really originates, and that's the biggest erogenous zone, that's also the place where you can educate yourself and learn how you can pleasure other people in other ways if you're feeling inadequate in that way.
I think we all need to just go home and just have a moment alone with ourselves and think about life.
Sam, I'd like to thank you for not using. I'd like to thank you for not using the Borat term "wizard sleeve."
See, he could have done far worse. Far worse.
If this was after 10 o'clock, one of my favorite activities is coming up with and I do this in like presentations and classes, so people can immediately lose the sense of shame and reluctance to talk about the subject. I have them give me whatever slang terms they can to describe various body parts or acts, just so that they can get the giggles out, so that they can get a lot of that sense of shame out of the mix, so that they can actually have a conversation without it getting hijacked by somebody like blushing.
Where's the fun without the shame?
You're just trying to undermine all the good work we did tonight.
I wanted you to chime in with because I'm sure, you carry yourself as someone burdened by a mountain of sexual shame.
Well, it saves time.
So, do you charge by the hour? Because I want to hear this session.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time on a fancy water bottle with ultra titanium alloy metal. You're not sure why you need all that. I mean, it just holds water. But you're getting it anyway. Because if you're hiking near an active volcano and you accidentally drop the bottle into molten lava, your water will still be icy cold. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time for water bottles. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Riley Herbst from 2311 Racing here. And you know what grinds my gears? Waiting for coffee. But instead of counting frappes and lattes, I fire up Chumba Casino. No apps, no fuss, just fun social casino games to pass the time. By the time my coffee's ready,
order for Riley.
I've already taken a few victory laps. Next time you're stuck waiting, make it entertaining. Play for free at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You know what's great about your investment account with the big guys? It's actually a time machine. Log in and zoom. Welcome back to 1999. It's time for an upgrade. At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind at Public.com. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. It's Later with Mo Kelly. Tonight we added the Facebook Live option so that going forward you'll be able to watch us on Facebook at Mr. Mo Kelly. We have the YouTube at Mr. Mo Kelly and Instagram at Mr. Mo Kelly. So if you are on the interwebs, as they call it, you'll be able to find the show. And speaking of the show, tomorrow night we will be playing Name That Movie Cult Classic. Probably not for prizes. I know.
What?
Big disappointment. Look, Tawala's been working very hard, but they don't give us prizes. We have to go get them ourselves. We do. Seriously. We have to scrounge our business.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So
seriously.
I guess people just have to do it for fun.
We have to do it for fun. But also, just prior to that is the Rauner Report, starring our own sexy Mark Rauner.
Yes, starring.
Mark, what is going to be on the Rauner Report tomorrow?
Well, with any luck, we're going to talk about 28 Years Later, which is the second sequel to 28 Days Later. Yeah. Because when days, weeks, years, I don't know what they're going to do next. 28 millennia later. I have no idea if they have a third one lined up. But it's the zombie movie, which director Danny Boyle insists is not about zombies. It's about the infected. And I'm like, they're zombies. Get out of my face with this. Don't split hairs with me about zombies in a zombie movie.
Is he trying to pivot towards COVID?
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, these things are always topical.
It looks good.
Is it like I Am Legend? Those weren't
no, it's
vampires or zombies per se.
Yeah.
But it pretty much was.
Well, I mean, I Am Legend, the Will Smith movie, was such an insult. I was just grateful.
It's so disappointing
that Richard Matheson was dead by the time it came out, so he didn't have to have that inflicted on him. The book, I Am Legend, is really good. And it was made as a Vincent, I mean, we're getting off track here, but as a Vincent Price movie called The Last Man on Earth, which is kind of creepy. And The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, which
I saw that.
You might consider that cheesy in the year of our Lord 2025, but it's really good, The Omega Man.
It is. I haven't seen it in many, many years, but it probably doesn't hold up, but is probably still very good.
You're never going to see a true, fantastic, faithful adaptation of I Am Legend, but you watch The Omega Man for the magnificent Charlton Heston performance with that chest hair.
When it was in.
And that overwrought, oh my God, delivery.
Yes.
But as far as 28 years later goes, these are pretty quality movies. And I can understand why Danny Boyle would not want it ghettoized with zombie movies, because those just got to be the cheapest kind of horror movie you could make. You slap some makeup on somebody, get your friends corralled to work weekends for free, call it a zombie movie, throw them some meat scraps from the butcher shop. But these are really quality horror films. They're not the kind of stuff that Blumhouse, which I like, would crank out. Danny Boyle's a terrific A-list director. I mean, he did Slumdog Millionaire. He did Sunshine, I think, the science fiction movie. So I guess I can understand why he wouldn't want to be lumped in with, like, Lucio Fulci.
Yeah. And Negan. I get it.
But I like all those things. But there's the whole range in terms of quality. I fell asleep last night watching the middle one 28 weeks later. And, that's not bad. I didn't give it the best review when it came out. And I got a Google alert, somebody like calling out my review from 18 years ago. It's like, that's where movie criticism is at this point. You're like looking for people who you can drag because you think in retrospect they got stuff wrong 18 years ago.
I did not work as a movie critic as long as you had and have, Mark Ronner. But I do know this. After so many reviews, for me, I wasn't enjoying movies. I was analyzing movies. And it didn't seem like it was as much fun. I couldn't go in without the weight of looking at every single plot point and MacGuffin device and trying to strip it down to its basic foundation as opposed to just watching a damn movie.
That happens to some people, and I get that. And I've known people who have been movie critics far longer than me. And when we all used to go into, say, the same theater for a screening, I always called them the Undertakers because they didn't look like they were having fun at their job. But the way I approach it, and I think the way you could, is that you just go in with a clear head and watch the movie, and then reverse engineer it when you come out. Figure out, okay, what worked in that and what didn't. Why did it have that effect on me that it did? I don't go into a movie like with a checklist or anything like that. I just look at it holistically.
I was going to say, do you take notes?
I used to, but I never do now.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's the whole spectrum. There's a guy from Seattle, and I think he's actually freelancing for the Seattle Times now, where I used to work. He used to scribble furiously for the whole movie to the point where you don't want to sit next to him because the scribbling is so loud it takes you out of the movie. And I'm like, how are you even watching this? How are you processing? Are you writing down the dialogue? What are you doing?
Yeah, I had shorthand, just phrases that would remind me of a thought I had that I wanted to make sure I included in the review.
Also, you can get a lot of what you need online after the fact now, so you don't need to take furious notes during the movie. I mean, when I first started eons ago, like when Fred Flintstone was pushing his car with the soles of his feet, you didn't have IMDb. You can look up anything you need now.
True.
The press kits, they're all electronic press kits now. People who have boxes and boxes of the old folders of press kits, they're worth nothing. I'm sorry to disappoint
Absolutely
you.
nothing.
They're just taking up room in your basement and or garage. You were a fool not to throw them away at the time. Although, as an eBay denizen, I know of a slight few of them turn up that are worth a lot of money. Those you can't afford.
That's tomorrow, 28 years later, a review from Mark Ronner, provided he gets to see it tonight.
Are you going to go with me to a midnight screening?
Absolutely freaking not.
You're a godless coward.
I am. And I will. Well, I could. I'll be snoring by 30 minutes in.
Well, you're always snoring in the movie anyway.
Well, but that's because they're after midnight.
All right. Looks like we're not going to. I'll just give you the word after the movie.
Okay. We'll find out tomorrow together.
That's the most over it I've ever heard in his voice.
Yeah. Sleep tight, Mo.
All right. I can't stand you, Mark Ron.
I'm all you can think about.
KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
KFI and KOST HD2, Los Angeles, Orange County. More stimulating talk.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And here we have a specimen from the early 2000s, a legacy investing platform. Please don't touch the exhibit, folks. It could crash.
Ready to step out of the financial history museum? At Public.com, you can invest in almost everything. Stocks, bonds, options, and more. You could even put your cash to work at an industry-leading 4.1% APY. Leave your clunky, outdated platform behind. Go to Public.com and fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Full disclosures at Public.com/disclosures.
There's an efficient way to get caught up on a lot of news. It's called The Seven from The Washington Post. It's a newsletter and podcast. Whether you're reading or hit play, you get 7 stories you need to know, and you can consume it all in just a few minutes. The Seven is out every weekday morning by 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'm one of the writers, and I host the show. Find The Seven podcast wherever you're listening. The newsletter link is waiting for you in the show notes.